When he was down to $600, I was going to re-raise him light there because I feel like you do get a little bit more credit um, when you re-raise a slightly shorter stack light. Um, they would think that you're investing too much of effective stacks to get away from a lot of hands. With which a hand like 6-8 offsuit, I mean, I'm fine getting away from it pre-flop, and it's harder for them to make a move on you from the flop if you put in 99 pre-flop and then bet 150 on the flop. They've only got another 400 to bluff raise with, so I mean, they're basically going to be having to go all in on the flop. This is one of those flops that Jay just loves to check raise. So I'm going to try to check it down, maybe improve, and definitely think you can raise this for value. He donks 40. I'm going to make it 169. First off, this looks really suspicious, and I think you get called down kind of light. And second off, he just doesn't defend that many deuces. And he's not a big slow player. So I don't think he has aces too often. And I'm getting called down for sure here. Um, on the river, I mean, obviously I have the nuts now. I'm just going to bet pretty big. It's like, I think easy enough for him to convince himself to pay me off with ace high. Here I'm going to bet 369. I feel like 369 is kind of like a big number that might seem like I don't want to be called. And against a good player who's thinking on the next level, they're going to think, oh, well, he doesn't want to be called. I will look him up. So Jay's thinking about it and requesting time here. I would put him on pocket sixes or ace five. So he's saying I never slow play. Um, okay. So he thought about it at least. But I know, or a lot of players in the turn on the turn will just call there because they think it's like building too big of a pot. Um, but I think that with king queen, you got to just consider your hands and nuts there against a player like Jay. And if he comes over the top, I think I would not be folding. I don't think just because there's a flush draw on the board, and I've seen Jay just make some wild bluffs. So we can see his stats leveling out over 56 hands. He's playing 52, 34, 3 with pretty high flop aggression factors. He's not betting the flop all that often, um, which I think you'll find that as a tendency more in high stakes players because they are used to players trying to exploit them by constantly check raising them on the flop. So a player like Jay would be used to that and would be checking behind more hands on the flop, whether he's checking behind his ace highs or his airs, and occasionally a monster to mix it up. So continuation bet percentage is like 57%. He's done it 4 out of 7 times. And we can look at mine. Mine's 59%. I've continuation bet 13 out of 22 times. And my stats on the table are 59, 48, 5. I'm going to peel 1 on the flop with pair deuces. Definitely not peeling the turn. If the flop was 5, 8, 8, I certainly would not check call, just because a complete bluff has overwhelming equity against your hand. I mean, you're going to get counterfeited, or they're going to hit a pair. So definitely just give that up. Back when I used to play on party poker mainly, I was primarily a six max player because they didn't have heads up tables. But it's kind of I definitely should have started learning heads up play earlier on, which I think one reason Taylor has been killing it for so long because he's always been such a good heads up player. When you get a lot of practice heads up and get a lot of hands in, it really helps your tilt control for one, and two, it just makes you find better situations to make plays, and also just improves your hand reading skills because so often you're put in tough spots. So I would definitely recommend to like any 1-2 no limit players who like thinks their six max game is certainly good enough to beat 1-2, but feels like they're getting outplayed by the regulars at higher limits to go work on their heads up game and then take another shot at those higher limits. So I'm going to call a re-raise with king jack suited. It's been re-raising me a fair amount. I flopped 2 backdoor draws and overcards, but I haven't let him win a pot in a while. I've kind of got the momentum in this match, and I don't feel this is a great time to make a play. and try to give him the momentum. He bets 155 into like 230. It's pretty hard to rep that much on this board. Um, and he's a type of player that like if you min raise him, he's going to shove over the top with ace king and stuff like that a fair amount of the time. So we'll just give him one. He's been playing a pretty tight game so far. Um, Tight players can be more of a grind to play heads up, but they're certainly profitable to play. I'm not sure if I'd recommend playing J, but you might see someone who has reasonable looking heads up stats, but just has really bad post flop leaks, or somebody like Grimstar, who was a pretty good six max player, but heads up, he just did not adjust his game at all. So you could just check raise him on every single flop, and he would never float you, and he'd still constantly bet his air and his bottom pair. So he'd be put in really tough spots, and he hit a really bad heads up downswing. And I think he's started focusing back more on a six max game, which I would recommend trying to work out the leaks in your heads up game rather than giving it up completely. Because when you become a better heads up player, you'll be amazed at how much it helps your six max game. So I folded Jack 7 suited there to a 3-bet of his. It's a hand that plays pretty well post-flop and one that I'm reasonably likely to call 3-bets with, but I decided to give him one and limping 10-5 suited because he's been re-raising me a fair amount and taking a stab at a flop that I have no chance of winning. Going to re-raise him with 6-5 suited. He hasn't been 4-betting me much. If he had been 4-betting me a lot, I might just call because this hand plays pretty well post-flop. I flop bottom pair and 2 backdoor draws, so it might give me a good semi-bluff opportunity on the turn. At the same time, those ace-high boards, he's going to be making a play at quite a bit, so I'm not thrilled about betting the flop, but the hand's just not strong enough to check call. So I'm going to go ahead and 4-bet him with pocket tens here. He's been 3-betting me quite a bit, and I'll be fine getting it in pre-flop here. My 4-bets are sized, so I can definitely do it at bluffs, or as bluffs. And it usually puts most players in a push or fold situation. So, and it's great when I only have to risk $220 and put the other guy into a $1,000 situation. So I'm just going to call the rest off pretty quick. It's a really bad flop, but he says oops, so maybe I win. Yeah, okay. So it's the type of thing where you'll get good players on tilt by making these small 4-bets for $220. So you make these $220 like maybe mistakes. But if you make 2 of those and it causes him to make a $1,000 mistake, then mathematically it pays off.